remember that?
Yes,
Next.
yes.
Yes, sir.
I repeat once again, ETL components have nice interface to help us create tables automatically. But remember, as a data engineer, our job to optimize the table structure as much as possible. No stone unturned. To get that benefit, better to have our own table creation skill. In addition to SSMS, what other studio we can use for this transact SQL queries? Do you remember? Previous class. Yes, we are doing Management Studio. What's the alternative for Management Studio? For transact SQL queries.
Notebook creation.
No. For a transact SQL. No, notebook is for PySpark. We'll do it by later next week. I am talking about
Data Studio.
No. Anything else? As per our class notes earlier.
Synapse Studio.
Exactly. Synapse Studio, right? No. Okay. Well, Synapse Studio. Yes. From our introduction notes, first statement, first paragraph. Transact SQL scripts, Management Studio or Synapse Studio. Both have this wonderful option, Transact SQL script. And those are mandatory. Only through Transact SQL we can control the distribution, partition and max DOP. Remember. Now assume, for example, you have a requirement. Let's proceed. Assume you have a requirement to import some data from a storage, Azure storage. I'll mail you one script today, and the script includes one blob URL. We call it binary large object. Something called binary large object. Requirement: how to import data from a URL. For now, we are taking an existing URL, and next two classes from now, we are going to generate our own URLs and secure them. Further use them in so-called pipelines, ETL pipelines. Yes, yesterday's class, to make it more clear in our journey, yesterday's class we understood how to create tables. Now let's understand how to load the data, challenges we face when we load data directly using Transact SQL, and need for data factory, and how to perform the imports through data factory. Understand something called some additional activities like DIUs. Just now I was writing something called self-hosted, right? We'll do it. How to work with something called self-hosted, this one, IR. We'll do it slowly, step by step. Let's see how to perform data monitoring with data loading activities. Here we go. We create table. We are creating a table that matches with the structure of this URL or the blob, binary large object data. Remember, very important here, we cannot directly visit the URL to verify the structure. Okay, remember, we cannot directly go to URL and say, hey, give me structure. No. There are certain process points we need to follow. It won't work like this. To read this kind of data sources, storage, cloud data storage platforms, we have certain studios like Data Factory Studio, Spark Cluster, or Synapse Studio with Spark Cluster. Remember, those are required. From chapter number 7, we'll talk about those things. So here is updated curriculum. From chapter number 7, we'll talk about the so-called Spark Cluster, reading the URL content. Without Spark Cluster, we cannot read the URL content directly. Remember, from Data Factory Studio or ETL perspective. Now, where we are, assume, yes, there is one URL, and for now you would like to dump that URL data into local, your Azure SQL pool table. Assumption, we know the structure and our table was given to us. Say the empty table is given. This structure matches with the content of the URL. How to verify the content? Spark Cluster is required. We are in chapter 2, chapter 7. From there onwards, we need to start working on Spark Cluster. Now, possible data import options, data import or data load options with Synapse SQL pool, dedicated SQL pool. There are 4 different ways. Something called copy into, also called copy command. Available with, I'll just write this way. Available with TSQL, ADF Studio and Synapse Studio. Something called bulk insert. Available with all 3. Next, Polybase.
TSQL means the SSMS, right?
No, brother. When you say TSQL, it can be from anywhere.
Okay.
TSQL can be from anywhere, like SSMS, even direct from Synapse Studio, or something called Azure Data Studio, Visual Studio, anything it can be.
So table structure we have to create, right, before copying?
In this example, we have to create. Yes, correct. Yes. In this example, yes, we are taking an existing structure. We are not aware of the structure, then we'll wait. How to verify the structure? We'll do it anyway. For that, we require Spark Cluster. We'll do. Where we are? Lost. I forgot where we are. Yes, here it is.
Polybase.
Yeah. Fine. Okay. Once any questions, please park your questions for some time, okay? It's easy for me. Upset. Available for with Polybase, these 2, okay. And here also these 2. Total 4 different options. No transact SQL here, okay. Just to make it clear, now understand. Fine. Let's understand. Copy into. Next example will take bulk insert. Next example will take Polybase. Then 4th, upset. Upset is like merge statement, merge activity. Here it is. Yesterday I was giving one task, given a task item. Do you remember? CTAS. What's the alternative for CTAS? Do you remember? CTAS.
It is like select into statement from table.
Yes, friends. select into, right? Because select can create a table automatically. Remember, using select we create tables, right? Select is not only for data reporting. We can create tables, insert data. Select into statement. Fine. Let's continue. What we are doing now? Assume you are given one table that matches with another given blob URL, binary large object URL. Let's see how to import data. This one. Copy into. We can directly have the default schema trip table. Default is DBO schema. Field terminator separator, say column separator. Tab means it's a TSV, tab separated value file. Row terminator, this one. OXOA, this is a standard string. Please remember this for row separator. Say like new line character. There are few ETL activities wherein we can directly say /n. This works in our later chapters number 7. If there is a Spark environment, this works. If not, we need to have this kind of hexadecimal representation. Label. Copy to trip. Give some label. This label can be used mainly for monitoring activities, completely optional. We do one copy. Say, table is ready, URL ready, and we are just doing a basic level copy activity. This would take somewhere between 25 to 30 minutes time. This particular command. Reason, crores and billions and billions of rows were involved here. Where we are loading to Synapse SQL pool. How to monitor? Here we go. DBO copy dot trip, right? This one. Make sure you provide the correct label. Here it is. Provide the correct label. There are two system views involved in this audit query, monitoring query. Predefined set of two system views that gives you the number of rows. Right now some 3 crore, 31 lakh, 10,000 rows were loaded. Again we execute. After some time again, few more crore rows will be shown. Some 4 crore right now. So the query is running. Data is getting imported. And we see increment in the row count. This one. Here, two system views. DM, Dynamic Management. PDW, Parallel Data Warehouse. It's a predefined system view that gives you the list of execution requests. Every execution request in SQL pool will be given one unique request ID. This one. This is called the request ID. Also called as query ID, QID. Every operation to SQL pool results in one request ID, also called query ID. And join with DMS. Hope you remember, yesterday I was showing one diagram. You see a DMS beside control node and compute node, both. Remember that? Something called DMS.
Yes, sir. Complete nodes.
Compute node, control node. Beside that, you see something called DMS. Remember?
Yes, sir.
Fine. Here it. Purpose of DMS. I gave this Word document yesterday. Please, if you can refer to it carefully. Now let's understand the purpose of DMS, Data Movement Service. The DMS component is responsible for a coordination of data between the compute nodes and control nodes to ensure parallel query executions and return accurate results. For example, the compute node decides or the control node decides to use, for example, say 50 out of 100 compute nodes. The data parallelism, the synchronization can be controlled by the DMS. Back to our query. Every DMS involves something called workers. Workers are the individual programs. If you are aware of Spark cluster, don't get misguided with something called worker nodes over there. Both are different. A Spark cluster can have something called worker nodes, driver nodes. Few of the worker nodes are master nodes. That is different. Here just workers. The internal programs required for query handling and data parallelism control. It's a data sync between multiple compute nodes. From here, workers will be used to measure the number of bytes processed or the number of bytes written to the SQL pool and the number of rows written to SQL pool. From the right now it is 16 crore 11 lakh 47,000 count right now. First part reported by EXEC request until here. First 4 columns. Last 2 columns reported by workers. Problem now. If I would like to get updated row count, I need to execute the script again. Once again, right? Like this. But what if you would like to have some live reporting kind of thing? You don't want to go by traditional way of writing a query, running a query, again refreshing it multiple times. You want some live analytic reporting kind of thing. Nice alternative. Studios, ADF Studio, Synapse Studio. So advantage of Transact SQL imports. Free data loads. No charge is involved for data load. Charge would be involved for Synapse SQL pool storage, compute, that's different. But ETL cost is 0. Remember, ETL is just like valet parking. It's like a free valet parking service, as simple as that. Easy scheduling of scripts by using jobs. But limitation, very slow. For example, just for about some 18 to 19 crore data right now, some 17 crore data right now, the query is running for more than 7 minutes. It's very slow. And manual refresh of audit. We need to keep executing the query manually again and again to get up-to-date row count on data load. To address these problems, we have something called pipelines. Data factory pipelines and something else called Synapse pipelines. Let's make it straight and simple. 2 types of pipelines we need to learn. Data factory pipelines and same interface as is with additional performance benefit, Synapse pipelines. Same interface again. So whatever we do in Data Factory, we can do in Synapse. It is something like this, okay? Something like this. MS Word, we know MS Word or Excel in your computer, and this is like a Google Sheet. Really, as simple as that. Same interface, same option, same style of working, but environment is bit different. Faster, costly, useful, in sync environment, something like that. Remember the term cost. Now, let's slowly understand how to work with pipelines from scratch, addressing the limitations with respect to data load performance and monitoring limitations of Transact SQL queries. And in this process, yeah, please tell me. Yes.
Yeah. So you said both are almost similar, right? Azure Data Factory pipelines and Synapse pipelines.
Exactly. And we are going to understand when to use it by end of later next week. Yes.
Okay.
Both are bits.
Small question, like if you want to move like whatever the ETL pipelines from Azure Data Factory to Synapse, it's going to be easy like the migration, or it's just going to be tough?
Dead easy. Believe me. Yes. No worries.
Sorry,
Dead. It's very much dead easy. Straightforward. Yes.
it's a straightforward, just lift and shift.
Exactly. Lift and shift is something called GitHub. You have GitHub account, it's lift and shift. Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay. GitHub would be the common one. For others,
Okay.
what is GitHub? Scary. No problem. Leave it to me. No problem. Leave it to me. Okay. We'll do. The very, very next document, number 3, talks about it. Third document, coming up very next one. Well, here it is. Let's understand our requirement. Where we are. We don't want to go by this traditional activity of copy into.